Welcome, Scorpio, to your in-depth monthly horoscope for January 2024 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you some standout details to look out for, but please stay with me. I will explore in much greater depth all the ins and outs, particularly relevant to your sign. Now, your two ruling planets are Mars, traditional, and Pluto, higher octave. And they're going to be central to this month's story. But as year 2024 begins, if we take the position of the Sun in Capricorn and the position of the Moon in Virgo, and we get the midpoint, it's actually in your sign at 8 degrees. So that gives you an enormous opportunity to be very influential all through 2024. Please stay with me for more. As we make our way into year 2024, if you would like to understand what this will mean for you in a totally individual way and ascend above this zodiac broadcast, please give me 3 pieces of your birth data of time, date and place, or date and place if you don't know your time, and I'll produce for you your 12-month forecast. This will be a full 12 months from the time of your order, unless you order in the latter part of 23, and I'll give you the rest of that year for free. But along with your 12-month forecast, which will give you searing insights, you can also get your character analysis report, your life roadmap. That gives you a much more intimate understanding of the influences that have played out in your whole life and how you can work with them. Also, you'll get your zodiac forecast for each of the 12 signs, your Indian Vedic forecast and your Chinese forecast for year 2024, all free of charge. Please see the link beneath this video for more. So Scorpio, as you make your way into the new year, the Sun is in Capricorn as is usual, but also so is Pluto, the aforementioned Pluto. But let's just have a little look at that position of the Moon, because in the sign of Virgo, it's actually in an opposition with the rather stern and cool energies of Saturn. And both are actually in a T-square back to the position of Venus. Now, Venus has a rightful reputation of being influential in relationships, but it's also the planet of money, and it's in your second house as you begin this year. So the second house is very much about everyday cash, but also our sense of self-worth. So I would say just be a little bit mindful if you're set to hit the winter sales about your expenditure, but also that position of the Moon and the position of the Sun, if we divide them by 2, we get that Sun-Moon midpoint. Incredibly important in serious astrology, and it means that this year does have a scorpionic feel, and that gives you an enormous positive burst to really embrace and take into the new year with you. But also, if you recall, Jupiter, the planet of growth and optimism, and in traditional astrology, luck, was in retrograde for the last 4 months of last year. But nip and tuck on the 27th of December, it forged an exact 120-degree trine with the Sun, one of the most lucky of all planetary aspects. It then went direct on the last day of last year, and the two are still in touch as this new year begins. But critically for you, Jupiter is in your sector of relationships. Now, I'm not just talking about romantic relationships. We can have connections of many different kinds, and Jupiter is the planet of trade. So the 7th house could point towards some kind of contact or contract that could come to you quite early in this year. And one of the reasons for that is that your traditional ruler Mars is in a tight conjunction with Mercury in retrograde at the start of this year, again in your second house, just like Venus. But they're being conflicted by Neptune. Again, just saying, don't be too hasty to part with your hard-earned money. But on the 2nd, Mercury goes direct, and on the 4th, Mars moves into Capricorn. But your ruler Mars loves being in Capricorn. It's exalted here. And this is the part of your situation that's to do with the expression of your ideas, your everyday ideas. Can be to do with belief systems, can be to do with our connection with siblings and neighbours. And in Mars's case, it could give you a bit of a push to get more active after all that Christmas calorific goodies. But Mars from the 7th through to the 17th, peaking on the 12th, forges an incredible link with Jupiter. So once more, coming on from the super link between the Sun and Jupiter, we now have the hustle bustle energies of Mars. And Mars in Capricorn means business. So your sense of conviction about what you're saying can really firm up, and that can give you a passion that other people can find very evocative. Now it could be in a romantic context. The 11th certainly gives you the chance to use your powers of communication very successfully, because the new moon in the sign of Capricorn is linking to Uranus along with Jupiter in your sector of relating. But the 7th house isn't just about relationships, it's also about where we want to set out our marker of how we interact with others and compete. Uranus can be radical, it can be changeable, it can be difficult, but it also pushes us to have an authentic situation in the house it's representing. So it's asking you to be frank about what you need in your relationships. And having the new moon in the mix with Uranus and Mars in the mix with Jupiter means that you can come across in a very impressive way. This can be helpful in terms of business, discussions, your social situation, or in terms of your romantic situation too. Now Mercury arrives back in Capricorn on the 14th, last there on the 23rd. It's not going to come out of its post-retrograde shadow until the 21st of January, but the big story from the 17th through to the 22nd is that Venus in your second house of everyday money is in a complex relationship with Neptune. There may be someone that you'll find in very mysterious but also very sultry, and it may be very hard to resist that person. But just be aware that Neptune can distort as much as enchant, and we just have to really make sure that we decipher things shrewdly. And that's where your natural shrewdness can come in and be such an asset to you. But that brings us to the 20th. It's probably one of the most important days I can remember for a long time. And the reason for this is that the Sun in Capricorn and Pluto meet in the last minutes of the sign of Capricorn. And this will be the last time this happens for many, many years. It won't be in our lifetimes. And what it does for you is help you to think back right through to 2008. There may have been big changes in your immediate everyday environment, perhaps to do with the people you live around, the community you live in, the way you think, some of the ideas you have, your approach to technology, your relationships with siblings. All of these things may have gone through profound alterations. But then on the 21st, the 20th later in the day, the Sun moves into Aquarius, Pluto follows on the 21st, and Mercury comes out of its post-retrograde shadow. And suddenly it's a new world that's developing for you, the 4th house. Your yearning is going to become much, much stronger over the next years. You're going to have a brief interlude from the 2nd of September to the 19th of November, when Pluto will step back into the sign of Capricorn. But essentially from here on in, for many, many years to come, there's going to be a big development around your emotional situation. Now, you're a very deep sign and you can be very intense, sometimes people find, but you can also be very direct in your observations that you make about other people, but often it's instinctive. And if you feel that someone's being a bit fake, you like to cut through and really tell them. What you're going to discover, I feel, with the Sun and Pluto moving into your 4th house, is that you're going to evolve in a way that may be hard to even comprehend, to be honest, because although Pluto moved through this part of your situation for 11 weeks last year, it probably wasn't really enough to give you a true understanding of the might that Pluto can have in the fourth house. It could see you, for example, deciding to move home. It could see you renovate or rejuvenate a property, because there's a phoenix-like energy to Pluto. Also, there could be some kind of renewal or repair that goes on in a family relationship that hasn't been very good, or conversely, a family relationship could start to break down if you're not getting the nurture and the respect back that you feel that your investment in that situation deserves. But just be aware, the Sun does then go into a square with Jupiter. So when it comes to your emotional needs and around a family member, what Jupiter can do is almost inflate our viewer situations. It can see a bit of hubris creeping in. It's important to understand all the different sides of any particular equation, but particularly around an emotional connection. So interesting, Jupiter can be very generous, but it can have that more exaggerated vibe. But then on the 23rd, Venus moves out of that struggle with Neptune, which may have been quite exquisite in some ways in terms of the mood music that you've achieved with one person, but it moves into a part of your chart in Capricorn, which sees you asking some searching questions. It also can see you perhaps dipping into the winter sales opportunities and perhaps nabbing yourself some kind of electrical gadget or a device, third house. But Venus in the third house can also give your words and the way you express them even greater allure. And because Mars is in this part of your situation as well, don't underestimate the impact that the things that you say, or if you're someone who enjoys singing, is very self-expressive with different ideas, you're good at technology, for example. I feel that Venus and Mars being together can be very exciting for you. But then on the 25th, we do have a full moon. The Sun in the sign of Aquarius is basically disassociated because it's in its detriment. It's in its coolest part of its journey. Whereas the moon is in the warmest sign of Leo, and Leo energy is very much about affection, can be quite gregarious, but it can also see in your case your feelings being quite high and close to the surface. There may be some kind of work-life balance issue that needs to be resolved, but Jupiter's T-square in this influence, it's important that you're not too generous, but at the same time that you don't accept someone's part in a situation where you don't feel you get as much as you need. So generosity can play out in different ways. It's not just what we physically give, it can be what we accept. And someone may offer a solution that isn't actually good enough for you, and that's where your generosity could actually be misplaced. So something around that at the end of the month. If you've got your eye, for example, on a particular place to live, and maybe there is quite a lot of money involved, be very aware of making sure that you're working closely with anyone else who may be involved in the equation. If you go for it on the basis of, like, trust me on this, it's all going to work out fine. Although it may, it's much better to do it in a more inclusive way. So I feel there's a lot of generosity of spirit at the end of this month, but you just need to make sure that it is coming to you as well as you transporting it outwards to others. But it's a very, very profound month for you, I feel, and that Mars energy in your third house joined by Venus really can give your words and your self-expression great power. And also Jupiter, the planet of fortune in your sector of relationships, forging a great link with the Sun and also with your traditional ruler. There's so much to go for this month for you, Scorpio. I'd like to wish you all the very best for year 2024. If you'd like to have a 1-to-1 with me, please see the link beneath this video. But for now, if you would kindly like, comment, share or subscribe, that would be wonderful.